Good morning, Swans and Falcons, and welcome to Tuesday's maths lesson. Today we're going to be carrying on with finding percentages of amounts. Okay, so we're going to be building on some of the knowledge that we learned yesterday in our maths lesson. So our learning intention again is, can I find a percentage of an amount? And our date today is the 26th of January. So to start off this morning, I'd like you to have a go at these warm-up questions. Okay, pause the video now, have a go at them yourself, and then I'll come back to you and we'll work through them together. Okay, so hopefully you've got some answers written down now. So, to find 50% of something, I know that 50% is equivalent to 50 100ths, which is also equivalent to 1/2. So I need to divide 620 by 2, which equals 310. Okay, so 50% of 620 is 310. So moving on to my next one, 25% of 620. Okay, so I know that's equivalent to 25 100ths, which I know I can simplify to 1/4. So therefore, this time, I need to divide 620 by 4 to figure out what 25% is. Okay, so it's always okay to show our workings out. So I'm going to use bus stop method to divide 620 by 4. So 4s into 6 go once with 2 remaining. So I've got 22 there. So 4s into 22. Oh, how many times does that go? I know that 4 times 5 is 20. So I'm going to put my 5 up there and I've got 2 remaining. So 4s into 20, I know go 5 times. So 620 divided by 4 is 155. So finally on this one, 10% of 620. 620, nice and easy, divided by 10 equals 62. So moving on to the next set, 50% of 1,800. Okay, so I know that 50% is equivalent to 1/2. So I need to divide 1,800 by 2, okay, which equals 900. Okay, to find 10% of 1,800, what would I need to divide 1,800 by to find 10%? Yeah, I need to divide by 10, okay, which would be 180. And now to find 1% of 1,800. Okay, so I know that percentages are out of 100. So if I'm trying to find 1%, then I need to divide by 100. Okay, so 1,800 divided by 100. Okay, you need to be careful of your place value here. So divided by 100 would give me 18. So our last couple of questions, find 1% of 100. Okay, so we've just discussed that to find 1%, I need to divide by 100. So I would need to do 100 divided by 100, which gives me 1. 1% of 100 would be 1. So if we imagine our 100 grid split into 100 little squares, if I'm trying to find 1%, that would just be one little square shaded in. Okay, what about finding 1% of 110? So I need to do 110 divided by 100. Okay, so again, you need to be very careful with your place value here. So how many place value columns does my number need to move? So if I'm dividing by 100, my answer would be 1.1. Okay, hopefully you got all of those correct. Let's move on to our next slide. So in yesterday's lesson, we used this bar model to find out what 10% of 120 is. So to begin with, we divided our bar up into 10 sections and we divided our whole, our 120, by 10 to figure out what the value of each section would be. Okay, so we did 120 divided by 10, which gave us 12. Okay, So now looking at these problems down here, 20% of 120, 60% of 120 and 90% of 120, how can you use what we already know to figure out these problems here? So if we already know what 10% of 120 is, how is that useful for us to help us figure out what 20%, 60% and 90% of 120 is? Well, if we already know that 10% of 120 is 12, we know that 20% is simply double 10%. So we could multiply 10% by 2. Okay, so we'd multiply 12 by 2. So 12 multiplied by 2 is 24. Okay, so 20% of 120 is 24. Okay, so what about 60%? So what would I need to do to my 10% to get to 60%? I would need to multiply by 6, wouldn't I? So I'm also going to multiply 12 by 6. Okay, and again, it's fine to show your workings. So I'm going to do 12 multiplied by 6 in our column method. So 2 times 6 is 12, 1 times 6 is 6, plus my 1 is 7. Okay, so my answer to 60% of 120 is 72. So what about 90%? Well, if I already know that 10% of 120 is 12, all I would need to do is take my whole, my 120, and take away 10%. Because if I take away 10% from 100%, that then gives me 90%. So 100% take away 12. Okay, I'm using my column method again for this. So 0 take away 2 I can't do, so I'm going to borrow 1 from here. 10 take away 2 is 8. 1 take away 1 is 0, and my 1 down there. Okay, so 90% of 120 is 108. So from our previous slide, I already know that 10% of 120 is 12, and I also know that 20% of 120 is 24. So using those number facts, how many different ways could you calculate 80%? Okay, so to start off with, let's think about the 10%. So we could do 10% multiplied by 8 to give us 80%. So let's try that, shall we? So 10% is 12. So 12 multiplied by 8 equals, what does that equal? Remember, it's fine to show you're working out. So I'm going to do 12 multiplied by 8. Okay, 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 1 is 8, plus another 1 is 96. Okay, so I know that 12 times 8 is 96. Okay, so therefore I also now know that 80% equals 96. Okay, let's double check that by doing a different method as well. So I'm going to change my colour pen. Okay, so what other ways could I calculate 80% with the facts I already know? How could I use 20%? Well, I could do 20% multiplied by 4. That would also give me 80%. Okay, so let's try that one out. So 20% is 24, we know that already. So 24 multiplied by 4 equals, okay, again I'm going to do some jottings up here. So 24 multiplied by 4. So 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 2 is 8, plus my 1 is 9. So again, that's 96. Excellent. So I'm going to write that down, 96. Okay, so again, I'm going to write 80% equals 96 down there. Okay. Have you thought of any more ways that we could do that? can think of one more. So the other thing I already know is what 100% is, because I know that 100% is 120. Okay, so I can use that because I know that 100% take away 20% would also give me 80%. Okay, and I already know what 20% is. So I can do 100%, which is 120, take away what I already know 20% is, so take away 24, which equals 96. Perfect, so there we go. For a third time, 80% equals 96. There we go, that's 3 different ways there. I wonder if you can come up with any more. Okay, so what about this one here? How could we calculate 15% of 80? Okay, so we haven't calculated 15% of anything before, but we have calculated 10% of something. So we could go ahead and partition this into finding 10% and then finding 5%. Okay, so I've got my bar model here set up to help me. So my whole is 80, and then I've got the bar split up into 10 sections. So if I can find what this section is, I know that that would be worth 10%. Okay, so I can do 80 divided by 10, because 80 is my whole and 10 is my number of sections. Okay, and that will give me 8. So therefore I know that I can label 1/10, so one of my 10 sections, as 8. Okay, but this time I'm not actually trying to find out what 10% is, am I? I'm trying to find what 15% is. So I already know my 10%, that's fine. And I also know that 5% is half of 10%. Okay, so I'm going to split this next box in half, because I know that that box is equivalent to 10%, but actually all I want to know is half of that, 5%. Okay, so I can take the number facts I already know, because I know that 10% is 8. Okay, so I can take my 8 and I can divide it by 2. Okay, because I know that 5% is half of 10%. So 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Okay, so I'm going to label that there. So now what I need to do, I'm just going to make this clear. So I'm going to say I've worked out 8 is 10% and I've worked out 4 is 5%. So I'm just going to make that clear by labelling them. So I know that I need to add together 8 and 4 to work out what 15% is. Okay, so 8 plus 4 equals 12. So 15% equals 12. So I've got a problem here. It says find 75% of 400. Okay, and I've got 2 boys here, Tom and Joe. I've just named them Tom and Joe. Okay, so Tom and Joe both have different ideas of how we can find what 75% of 400 is. So Tom says, I found 10% and multiplied by 7 to work out 70%, and then found 5% and added them together. Joe says, I found 25% and then multiplied it by 3. Do you think both of them are correct? Have a think. You decide whether you think both of them are correct, because on the next slide we're going to work through both of their ideas and see. So let's start off by looking at Tom's method. So to begin with, Tom found 10%. Okay, so we know that to find 10% we need to divide our whole by 10. So let's do 400 divided by 10, which we know equals 40. Okay, so that is, I'm going to label that as 10% so we don't forget. So then Tom said to work it out, he then multiplied his answer by 7. Okay, so 40 multiplied by 7 equals, So let's use our times table knowledge here. So what's 7 multiplied by 4? So it's 28, isn't it? Okay, so we know the 40 multiplied by 7 is 280. Okay, so the last bit, in fact, let me label that as 70%. Okay, so our last part is to figure out what 5% is. So as we did previously, we took our 10%, didn't we? And then we divided it by 2. So we can do the same thing here. So we know that 10% is 40. So we can divide that by 2. Okay, which gives us 20. And I can label that as 5%. Okay, so then he said, then he found 5% and added them together. So the last thing I need to do to work out what 75% is to add my 70% and my 5% together. Okay, so let's do that over here. So 280 plus 20 equals 300. There we go. So I know that 75% of 400 is 300. Excellent. Okay, let's now have a look at Joe's method. So Joe said, I found 25% and then multiplied it by 3. Okay, so Joe knows that 75% is equivalent to 3/4. And he also knows that 25% is equivalent to 1/4. So what Joe's doing is finding 1/4 and then multiplying that by 3 to find out what 75% is. Okay, so if Joe said that he's trying to find 25%, we also know that 25% is equivalent to 25 100ths because we know percentages are always out of 100. So 25% is equivalent to 25 hundredths, but we can simplify that. Okay, we've done this before. We can simplify 25 100ths to 1/4. Okay, and to do that, we're dividing our numerator and our denominator by 25. So to find 25%, Joe would have needed to divide his whole by 4. Okay, so his whole is 400, and he'd need to divide that by 4. So 400 divided by 4 is 100. Okay, so that's great. So we've found 25%. I'm going to label that again so we don't forget. So 25% of 400 is 100. But that's not what we were looking for. We were looking for 75%. So we can do 100 multiplied by 3, which equals 300. And we know that is equivalent to 75%. So there we go. We worked through both methods together and we found that they both work. So which one would you use? So finally, my last question for you. 60% of 80 equals and 80% of 60 equals. So let's start off with 60% of 80. So first of all, we can take our 80 and divide it by 10 to find out what 10% is. So 80 divided by 10 equals 8, and I can label that 10%. Okay, and then all we need to do is take our 8 and multiply it by 6, because that will be 10% multiplied by 6, which will give us 60%. Okay, so 8 multiplied by 6 equals 48. Okay, so let's have a go at 80% of 60 now. So to find 80% of 60, I can take my 60 and divide that by 10, because that will give me 10%. Okay, so 60 divided by 10 equals 6. But to find 80%, I then need to multiply that by 8 to find 80%. So 6 multiplied by 8 equals, okay, this is going to give me 80%, so I'm just going to label that there. 6 multiplied by 8 equals 48. So that's interesting, isn't it? So I've got the same answer of 48 for both of my problems there. And that's because multiplication is commutative. So that means multiplication is the same whichever way round you do it. Okay, so I'm going to leave you there for today. Now go onto the blog and find your worksheet, have a go, and let us know how you did on the blog. Bye!